welcome to part 3 of the Corner to Corner baby blanket. I am so excited to finish up the blanket this week, and then next week we will put the border on, and then our baby blanket will be done. So if you're ready, I will meet you over at the craft table. Be sure and grab your project and your hook, and let's get started. So to get started today, you need your project, the yarn that you're using, your hook, and of course, a little bit of lotion to hydrate your hands before we get started. Now, today, for part 3 of this Corner to Corner baby blanket, we are going to begin our decreasing rows that will finish off our rectangular blanket. And so let's just kind of take a look at what we have done so far. So let me move the yarn and the hook out the way. And so with part 1, we started working on our blanket, and we were establishing the bottom portion of the blanket, running along this way. And we were building the side of the blanket. And for this portion, because we're looking at the front of our blanket, we were building the left side of the blanket. Now, when we started part 2, we began the rectangular build of the blanket. And so that began with our decrease side, because here's our little hook stitch marker that we put on here to represent our decreasing side. When we began the decreasing side, here it begins building the right side of our blanket, as you can see. Now, depending on how tall you decide to make your blanket will determine how much of your right side you have completed. For me, because also on part 2, as we were decreasing here to start building our right side, we were still increasing over here on this side to create the height of our blanket to what we wanted. And as you can see, I've got a pretty good height built on my blanket. And I'm going to try and show it to you in just a minute with it all spread out. Today, we are going to be decreasing both on what we established as our decreasing side, but we're also going to begin decreasing on this side as well. And as we do that, it's going to start building the top of our blanket. So we're going to be building the top of our blanket as well as continuing to finish off building the right side of the blanket. So when we're finished today, we will officially have a blanket in the shape of a rectangle or square. Mine will probably be more the shape of a rectangle, a lot longer than it is wide. And then next week we'll come together and put the border on it. So I am going to see if I can get my camera here without making you too dizzy or motion sick to kind of show you the blanket. And so you can see how it's starting to come together. And it takes up a big portion of my table. So if you're ready, we're going to go ahead and start our decreasing rows. And before we do, I'm going to take this macaroon stitch marker out. Okay, got caught there on my stitch marker. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and take this stitch marker out because we don't need to keep up with which is our decreasing side anymore, because we're going to be decreasing on both ends now. All right. And it looks like I've already chained one. So go ahead and chain one and turn your work. And just like we have been on our decreasing side, we're going to go into the top of our 3 double crochets and we're going to work slip stitches. So we're just going to work a slip stitch in the top of each of those 3 double crochets, and then we're going to slip stitch into that chain 3 space. And as you can see, it continues to build that right side of the blanket. Just flushes it right up there against it. And now we're going to chain 3. And we're going to work our 3 double crochets right into that chain 3 space. And 2. And 3. Whoops. Got a little excited there and did a half double crochet. All right. Then we're going to skip over to our next chain 3 space and do a slip stitch just like we have been. Chain 3 and do our 3 double crochets. And we're going to continue to do that. Slip stitch into the chain 3 space, chain 3, and work 3 double crochets in each of those all the way across until we get all the way to the end here. And when you get to where you have 2 blocks left, go ahead and stop, and I'll meet back up with you and we'll finish this row out together. When you get down to the last 2 blocks, we're going to slip stitch, chain 3, work 3 double crochets, and then when we get to the very last block, we're going to slip stitch in that chain 3 space, chain 3, and we're going to work 3 double crochets. And that finishes off the block, the last block for that row, and it keeps us creating that edge of the blanket. We're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn, and we're going to work another decrease like we did on the last side, and we're going to go right into the top of these 3 double crochets, and we're going to work a slip stitch. And we're going to go into that chain 3 space and we're going to work a slip stitch. We're going to chain 3 and we're going to work 3 double crochets. And now, as you can see, you've got the start, here's your corner of this edge here beginning. And we're going to slip stitch into the chain 3 space of that next block, chain 3, work 3 double crochets, and we're just going to keep working the pattern as we have all along, slip stitching into the chain 3 space of the next block, chaining 3, and working 3 double crochets. And I'll do one more with you. Slip stitch into the chain 3 space, chain 3, and work 3 double crochets. And we have worked across enough that we can lay this down, and now you can see that edge forming. So go ahead and work across until you get to the very last block, and I will meet up with you there and we'll finish off the row together. So when you get to the last block in the row, you're going to join with a slip stitch, and we're going to chain 1, and we're going to turn. And as you can see, that side is still running straight up and down. And we're just going to repeat the very last row that we just completed. Going forward, slip stitching across the 3 double crochets, and into the chain 3 spot, then chaining 3 and working 3 double crochets. Oops, forgot to yarn over. And we're just going to keep working that last row all the way until we get down to where we have 1 block, and it forms our final corner where our top and our right side meet. So go ahead and continue working that last row. When you get to the end of the row, remember to always slip stitch into the last chain 3 space and then just chain 1. You're not going to chain 3 and work 3 double crochets. You're just going to join with a slip stitch, chain 1, turn, slip stitch back across the 3 double crochets, and slip stitch into the chain 3 space, chain 3, do 3 double crochets, and then all the way back across. And you're going to do that decreasing each row by 1 block until you get down to 1 block remaining, and your blanket will be finished. So keep working on your decreasing rows, and I'll meet back up with you when you have 1 block remaining. So I'm going to come and finish the last couple blocks with you to round off this corner. So we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to slip stitch across these 3 double crochets, getting caught up on that little silver strand. And we're going to slip stitch into that chain 3 space and chain 3, 1, 2, 3, work our 3 double crochets, slip stitch into the next block, chain 3, and work our 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and slip stitch into that chain 3 space, chain 1. We're going to turn back, and we're going to slip stitch across our 3 double crochets here, and into the chain 3 space, and we're going to chain 3, and we're going to work 3 double crochets, slip stitch into this chain 3 space, chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to work the very last time, slip stitching across these 3 double crochets, and into that chain 3 space, and we have just completed that final corner of our blanket. So we're going to chain 1, and I am almost at the end of this skein, so I'm just going to pull that all the way through and secure. So that finishes off our actual body of our blanket. You just need to snip off your tail, weave it in. I will spread this out at the end of this video for you to see. And next week we will come back and we'll add our border on. So until then, be joyful, stay crafty in your own way, make your own joyful creations, and let the creativity just flow.